watch out, Pink. You got one coming with you. You got one coming with you, Pink. I'll come down.
Patrick Surtain is week to week. The earliest with a pec strain, the earliest he could return would be against the Kansas City Chiefs, and the latest he could return would be after the bye week against the Washington Commanders. Adam Schefter came out today and said the Broncos were in talks for trades for a wide receiver. And also, the reports came out that Nate Atkins is hurt, a possible candidate for IR, and the Broncos missed on the waiver wire to the Vikings and the Browns on tight ends. Very interesting. I'm going to talk why that receiver trade talk is a misdirection, and tight end is really the trade to look for. I'm your host, Isaiah Henderson, also known as the Bronco Gentleman, and welcome to another episode of Orange Blue Blitz.
Tune in, now it's time to sit. Orange and blue, we never quit. Broncos pride is lit legit. Every week we're bringing grit. Orange and blue, we bring the heat. Podcast grinding can't be beat. Every play, every style we meet. Blitz so hard it's on repeat. My high dreams we elevate. Break it down, we narrate. From the field to the fan debate. Broncos country, we dominate. We got the passion, we got the drive. Orange and blue keeps us alive. Every tackle, every stride. It's the Blitz where legends thrive.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to another episode of Orange and Blue Blitz. I'm your host, Isaiah Henderson, also known as the Bronco Gentleman. Apologize about yesterday. There was supposed to be a show yesterday, but there are some difficulties with the editing and the production, so it wasn't able to go yesterday, but we are up today. Worked out great because we have a lot more news to talk about today. But quick, we heard the post-game show. Cowboys came great. So now we're moving forward.
I'm still right.
There we go. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. I was supposed to have two different Wi-Fi sets up, and I was on the wrong one, and I have more people in the house, and so Wi-Fi just crashed. Anyway, frustrated. Cowboys good win. Unfortunately, Patrick Surtain went out with an injury. He wasn't there for the remainder of the second half. So just a shout out to Vance Joseph and that defense for stepping up and getting Dak Prescott benched without Patrick Surtain. But the injury report says he's going to be week to week with a pec strain. As I said in the introduction earlier, is the Chiefs. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is he's after the bye week against the Cowboys. And so that's going to be tough for this defense. There's a silver lining in it. Dave Glassman in the house, he says, yo. Michael Yost says, super nervous for Surtain. I don't know if I agree with the tight end depth. Wants, though. Shai says it sucks PS2 is out. What's up, Dak? Yes, it does. But like I said, I think that one, we showed that, hey, we have the cornerback depth so far. And Bronco Rob comes in and says, next man up, Cad, let's go, which brings me to my point. So I think we're going to have a rotation of Jaquan McMillan in the slot. Dime. We're going to have Jahdae Barron in the slot, Dime, and definitely outside. We're going to see Chris Abrams-Drain as well. And I think that we have some pretty decent cornerback depth. We're going to see why we drafted Jahdae Barron. And so there's a couple things that I want to go over just to give hope and good news to Broncos country that I've really been thinking about since this injury came out and how this is going to adjust, what's going to change, how teams are going to attack, and how we would counter that with Vance Joseph and what would be the strategy, what I would do as well. And so there's a couple of things with Patrick Surtain being out is, number one, we've played the best wide receiver duos in the NFL already. Eagles, Cowboys, Bengals. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. We've won all three of those games. There aren't many wide receiver duo in the NFL that are left. Now, what we have are one-offs. And, for example, the Houston Texans are a great example of a one-off elite wide receiver in Nico Collins. He hasn't been off to a great year because their offensive line, there's been some offensive issues and things like that. But he is a one-off wide receiver. And this would definitely be a game with Patrick Surtain playing where he follows Nico Collins and the rest of the defense just eats. I think with the way our defensive depth is set up in the secondary, with the trust that Riley Moss has earned, I think that if Vance Joseph wanted to, and Riley Moss definitely will be up for the task, I think you could tell Riley Moss to follow Nico Collins. Now, do I think Riley Moss would absolutely eliminate Nico Collins the way Patrick Surtain would, especially because he's a bigger receiver? No. Nico Collins would have like 2 receptions for like 24 yards or something like that, and that would be the end of it. I think if you put Riley Moss on Nico Collins, he could have 6 receptions and 67 yards, a touchdown. Not eliminating him from the game, but, he's not a huge, playmaker. I think Riley Moss could definitely hold his own. And I think what you do with the rest of the Houston Texan weapons is you just let the rest of the secondary handle that. You got Brandon Jones. You've got Talanoa Hufanga. And then you also have Jaquan. These are 3 starters in the secondary still. Big Dime, who also had an interception. And then you have Chris Abrams-Drain, who has started and played in the last couple of seasons for us, been productive, got an interception, got a couple pass breakups. He got an interception against Justin Herbert when he came to step in for Riley Moss against the Chargers. And he also had several pass breakups when he came in and stepped in for in the Cleveland Browns game after Levi Wallace got torched by Jerry Jeudy. As well. So we've seen that he's capable of that as well. So he's definitely going to get the start over the next couple of weeks, and Jahdae Barron as well. So we have some pieces in the secondary, and I think you can just play them normally against the Houston Texans defense and say, hey, I think our guys are better than yours. And not only that, guys, let us not forget, Dre Greenlaw is coming back this week. I think Dre Greenlaw came and he played a half, and he didn't play the second half, and then he got suspended. But I think it's really time for him to really focus and to really lock in. We don't want him to be like Kareem Jackson, where Kareem Jackson will come back, be overly aggressive, get another penalty, cost the team, and then have to get suspended again. To the point where we just cut him. I think it's time for Greenlaw to. I think he does, and especially this week, especially being suspended. I think he does realize the situation the Broncos defense is in, which is, hey, we don't have the defensive player here, the best player on the defense. You're back now. Okay. You're healthy. You even got an extra week of rest now. So now you're super duper healthy. So now it's time to come in, play the snaps you need to play, and come in and be a difference maker. And I think it's really time to have him this next couple of weeks, put the defense on his shoulders. Not in the sense of trying to do too much and trying to make too many extra plays, but really come in and bring in that intensity and that leadership. Because Pat Surtain is quiet leadership where you're not saying he doesn't talk on the field, but where he eliminates a receiver and you just know he's there because he's doing his job. And it may not be that easy, but I think with Dre Greenlaw patrolling the middle of the field and communicating with the defense, flying all around, making tackles and stuff like that, and just being Dre Greenlaw and playing like that, I think taking away the middle of the field can really hurt other offenses while also allowing the secondary to really help the younger guys who are stepping in, Jahdae Barron and Chris Hayden during this week. Instead of having – because with other – for example, when we played the Jets, the Colts, the Eagles, and the Cowboys, teams that have dynamic running backs. You see Talanoa Hufanga brought down into the box a lot and around the line of scrimmage to help with the run game, and it works well. That was without Dre Greenlaw. You saw that a lot. But what that did was that put the cornerbacks on an island and said, hey, you man up on whoever these guys are, and you lock them down. Well, with the young guys coming in, maybe you don't play, maybe you still play man, but you don't play that aggressive all the time like that. So with Dre Greenlaw covering the center, because what Talanoa Hufanga would bring down is he would be there to help the run, but also the over routes, the tight ends, the running backs at the backfield. He would help fill in for Dre Greenlaw and help supplement as well. And you would with Dre Greenlaw back, maybe you don't necessarily need Talanoa Hufanga to patrol the middle. So then you could maybe bracket Nico Collins as well in the secondary with Riley Moss. Maybe you put a safety on top because you have Dre Greenlaw who can patrol the middle of the field, in addition with Justin Sternard and Alex Singleton, who have started to play really, really well, actually. And Alex Singleton came out, and he's definitely heard the chatter from Broncos country about him covering tight ends, and he definitely said, I don't cover tight ends. And that's because of players like Pat Surtain, who can man up on the best receiver. And he doesn't have to bracket over the top, but he can come down and play man coverage on a tight end. And there's players like, things like that, and Brennan Jones. So Alex Singleton, Vance Joseph is able to construct a defense where Alex Singleton doesn't have to cover the tight ends. But now you're coming into a situation where you have a middle linebacker who can cover the tight ends, and that just opens it up more. So now I'm really interested to see Vance Joseph's scheme and how he constructs and operates and moves the secondary around, because now we're definitely going to see Jahdae Barron really play that star position that he played in college, which he's going to be playing a lot of inside, outside. I wouldn't be – he's playing inside and outside, maybe in the base. He's playing maybe in the base package. It's Riley Moss and Jahdae Barron. And then the nickel, it's Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan, and Chris Hayden's. And the dime package, bring him in, or you bring a safety. You need a lot of two different safety, Dre Greenlaw backs, and they can do whatever you want with these new guys. But in a way, you're forced to open up the playbook more. Not saying they didn't before, but now you open up the playbook more with Dre Greenlaw and these young DBs. But you have a DB in Barron, who you drafted in the first round, who can play both inside and out. So it's actually really beneficial. And so we'll see against this Texans. I think we can eke out a win. I've got a score in my head. We'll wait. I won't be here for the Get Buck Game Day show because I'll be at church. But I'm thinking, I know we'll have a show Friday, so I'll save it for Friday, but I do have a score in my head. But I'm thinking we can hold down. And the reason why we can hold down is because that pass rush really does help the secondary a lot. It really does help us a lot. In addition to Dre Greenlaw, I think that the pass rush also has to put the game on their shoulders for the next few weeks and say, hey, in order to help these young bucks in the secondary, in order to help our secondary as a whole, in order to help Drake Greenlaw become more acclimated, we have to step it up even a next notch. We have to go even more, because what helps the secondary is if the quarterback doesn't throw the ball. So let's say that Jahdae Barron or Pierce Drains have a slight communication issue, or they say whatever on a play, and one of them gets beat. But because the interior collapsed, the quarterback cannot throw the ball, so that one gets covered up. That's what I mean by they have to put it on their back and say, hey, it's our job to, hey, let's make it easy on the secondary by making it hard for the quarterback to even get rid of the ball. With Dre Greenlaw coming back and patrolling the middle of the field, he can also get those inerrant throws, those tip passes. He has that quick reaction, quick speed, sideline to sideline to really get those. And Dave Foglassman brings up the final point why we can, I think, actually hold our own against the Texans is the Texas O-line stinks. Yes, and I was talking to Johnny earlier, and it's kind of an equilibrium with Pat Surtain not playing in this game. Was the Broncos were 1-point favorites. Now the Houston Texans are favorites. So with our offense and with our defense and their defense, it's a wash. Our offensive line over offensive line gave us that we have the ability to neutralize their pass rush. They don't have that. But with Pat Surtain getting hurt, it seems like their secondary, even with our pass rush being, whether they may be able to get some catches with their secondary with Nico. That's true. That's why I said I'm okay with Riley following Nico Collins. So their O-line, so getting to CJ Stroud, getting him off his mark, making him confusing him in the secondary. And I think you can do that with these young guys. And, it looks like Jahdae Barron's coming off of a blitz, and then you drop him back into coverage and bring Drake Cohen from the other side while you're double mugging the A gap, and then you send Justin Sternad in, and then you send Dre Greenlaw back into coverage, and you have to control the middle of the field where you got pressure coming from this way and Nick Benito coming from the edge. And I think, you can hope, and then you have a safety over the top over Nico Collins. So just in case CJ Stroud thinks that he's got Riley Moss beat and wants to throw it up, Brian Jones gets an interception. We can definitely hold our own this game. And then the Raiders, I definitely think we can hold our own against the Raiders. With Drake Greenlaw healthy, that kind of helps with the Brock Bowers things if he's healthy. Jacoby Myers will probably be traded by then. I wouldn't be surprised if Jacoby Myers went back to the Patriots and him and Stephon Diggs teamed up. That would be actually a really good pairing with their also other receiver who's doing really well as well. Don't be surprised if the Patriots also decide they don't, instead of going for another receiver, they go for a tight end as well. But I can see Jacoby Myers being out of the Raiders by the time we play them. So he won't be there. So they'll just have Ashton Genty, Geno Smith, and Brock Bowers if he's healthy. Dre Greenlaw will be back. These young guys would have got about a game and a half under their belt, a good game plan. And then, but before I go to the Raiders, the offense versus the Texans. And here's a statistic that I was looking at today. The offensive line is absolutely A1. If you guys saw the Bucket Films post-game show, you saw that I gave a game ball to Alex Palchevsky. I'm going to do a more deep dive, but I believe the Houston Texans, one weakness on their defense would probably be their interior defensive line. Their edge rushers are great. Their linebackers are good. Their secondary is elite, just like ours. And so the Broncos are also second in the NFL in explosive run rate. We have J.K. Dobbins is third in the NFL in rushing. So Alex Palchevsky not only has done a great job pass protecting, but he's also a really good run blocker. So this is going to be a defensive game. Yo says Sternad in coverage, Dre and Benito with Cooper for pass rush. I would think you switch it. Sternad has 3.5 sacks, but you can definitely alternate because you got Dre Greenlaw for this, for running backs at the backfield, for tight ends, and to patrol the middle of the field. That's what you got him for. And also, he's an insane tackler. 6 tackles and 20 snaps is great. But you can alternate between all three of them. That's the beautiful thing about Dre Greenlaw coming back, is that you have these two linebackers who started together and who are doing really well. Then you bring an elite linebacker in, and you just have them on a rotation. You may even see all three of them on the field at once. I don't think you need that against the Texans because they're not a run-heavy team. But you may need that in the playoffs. You may need that against the Packers, against Josh Jacobs later on in the season. But we have the Yo says, I like Sternad covering tight end slot routes. I want to see him in coverage a little bit more. Yeah, you might see him in coverage a little bit more as well. He says Gino's cooked move, but yeah, that's definitely a 3 interception game, maybe 2 interceptions and a 4 fumble. That's for sure. And I think their best tackle's down too. And so Bronco Rob says, I'd say the Bronco gentleman becomes our new DC, or at least the defensive coordinator assistant. That's honestly one of the big reasons why I would love to have a son, is so that way I can coach football. Because when there was a Christian college in Nashville that about a couple years ago I worked at, but there was a flag football tournament. And so I was playing there's like staff could be on it or whatever. I was playing for a little bit, but because of my schedule, I ended up having to coach. And so in the championship game, I ended up having to the last couple games, I ended up having to coach, and I was basically shut down the opposing offense both sides. So it was actually really, really fun being a coach. But yeah, one of the things that I was good at was, because I'm a smaller person, I had to find an advantage elsewhere, and my advantage was my mental. So I really, really enjoy watching film and the chess match. And credit to Sean Payton coming in as the coach, because listening to him talk in the press conferences and how he sees things has allowed me to see things differently as well. But yeah, I love coaching defense. It's fun. It's definitely fun. So yeah, the offense is, I think it's going to be, the focus don't have to be running the ball. There's going to be a defensive slug out. It's going to be whoever can score. It's like every game is whoever can score the most touchdowns, but this game it's whoever can put up the most points. This could be a field goal for field goal. Special teams is going to be these games where it's a defensive slug out. Special teams comes into play, and we have not talked about it, but maybe Marvin Mims not being there is a big deal. Because this is where you're having a defensive slug out, right? Defense is defense, and you get a punt. And the punt can make a difference between good field position and bad field position. And if all you need is a field goal, maybe think of Broncos Jets. Think of Broncos Jets. If you want to have an idea of what this game is probably going to be like, think Broncos Jets. And not having Marvin Mims there, they said he played through it, I think, or they said it happened toward the end of the game. But if you're in concussion protocol, you normally don't play that week unless they say, hey, it's not really concussion. There are symptoms, but they went away. He's good to go. So I wonder, it's probably going to be Bidet and Harvey on kick return, but I'm curious on punt return. They'll probably have Bidet back there on punt return as well. So that's just something to think about. And who's going to play on the offensive side of the ball? I think this Pat Bryant's definitely going to get some more snaps. So it's going to be Cortland Sutton, Troy Franklin, Evan Ingram, and probably Pat Bryant. We're definitely going to miss Mims this game. But if we can rally together as a team and really move forward, offense, special teams, defense, and take the momentum that we had last week, and you can put up – it's hard. If you go watch Seattle game, you can put up 24 points. It's hard to do it, but you can do it. And so it's just, consistent with the run game, continuing to be good in the run game and wear the defense out. And because they're also at home, guys, so that we're going against the crowd as well. So it's going to be a tough dog fight game. But if we rally as a team and we stay disciplined, then we can definitely come out there with the win. So that's what happened with Pete and what's going on. But we're about to talk about there's been some chatter going on. But before we do, guys, make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. We are on the path to 539, and we are less than 40 subscribers away from that. So that triggers a bonus jersey giveaway, and you must be subscribed to us on YouTube in order to be a part of that giveaway. And so please go ahead and do that. And once you do that, there will be more giveaways and more milestones to hit, but you must be subscribed. We are a fan-led podcast, and we are here for you guys. But also make sure you hit that notification bell because you don't want to miss any of our shows. Because yesterday, we had Broncos Bro at 7 p.m. We were supposed to have Orange and Blue Blitz, but we talked about it in the beginning, but we had it today. In addition to this evening at 6 p.m., we have the Nothing Wrong with Orange and Blue podcast with the Mile High Viking and the Denver Dream Jay Weaver. And so you don't want to miss any of those shows. And I believe the Thursday show premieres this Thursday, but I'm going to speak with Johnny about that and see if that's true. But I think it premieres this Thursday. But hit the notification bell just in case. So if it premieres, you'll get that notification bell that the show is on. So you guys, no more Wi-Fi issues. We got on the right track and we are good to go. I just had to, get on the right one and we smooth sailing. Look at that. All right. There's some chatter that popped up today that the Broncos were in the receiver trade market. That's what the word is that Schefter reported. And I believe it was a slurry of teams. I think it was the Patriots, the Broncos, and I can't think of the other team. Same Bills and Broncos. This just broke. It says it's a rumor. Steelers, Bills, and Broncos are all trying to work out trade deals for Saints wide receiver Heed. That's just a rumor. There's also rumored that the Steelers, Bills, and Broncos were also trying to trade for a wide receiver. Now, after this last game, we cast a line into the water, and we wanted to see what was, just what's out there. But I believe that is a misdirection. And so I know we can talk about it for a second. Like for example, because the trade deadline's coming up, there's other trade talks that the Eagles are looking to bolster their secondary, and they traded for Jaquan McMillan. And so that the 2026 and a 27 it can become a fifth on playing time conditions. Yeah, I don't know what the Eagles are known for. Yeah, they can fleece, but you don't fleece George Payton. We fleece you. You're not going to give us 2/6 for Jaquan McMillan. No. If you want to trade for Jaquan, we'll start with a fourth. Maybe we'll do a 1-for-1 swap. You give us Dallas Goedert. Maybe, just maybe, if we're feeling it, you will give you Jaquan, and we'll get a 6th back, and you give us Nakobe Dean, and we'll give you a 7th back. How about we get another linebacker for next year? Sure, Greenlaw, Nakobe, Justin Sternad, and the Arvell Reese from Ohio State. The linebacker room next year. We'll get started on that this year. We'll give you McMillan, and John A. Ben Christian Dreams will step up next year. Yeah, then we'll talk. Other than that, yeah, get out of here. But there's also the Rashid Shaheed rumors. We have Marvin Mims. I get it. He's on concussion protocol, but he's Marvin Mims. He's the returner and he's the receiver. I think that they both have good hands. Rashid may be quicker. They may be just as fast, but that's redundant. If we were to trade for a receiver, it'd be a receiver that's on a big contract, that's still relatively young, that can produce now and for the future, because you'd be taking away playing time from Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant. So there's only one receiver that I think that we would make the move for. That's not Garrett Wilson. That's not Jalen Waddle. Chris Olave is too injury prone. So Jacoby Myers within the division. Jordan Addison of the Vikings. That's it. Jordan Addison of the Vikings. He gets immediate playing time. It would be Sutton, Addison, Mims, Franklin, Bryant. Back in the same thing with the Baylor situation. So I don't think we trade for a receiver. But Lucas Kroll's having season-ending injury surgery, and Nate Atkins is injured again. think the receiver is in. The Broncos were hit today. They tried to get in. And they were beaten by the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns. Both of them snagged tight ends off the waiver wire the Broncos were trying to get before the Broncos did. Now, I find this very interesting. Stay with me here. Stay with me here. The wide receiver talks, that's just talk. Nate Atkins returned to health. When Nate Atkins returned to health, you saw Evan Ingram's stats start to rise. Nate Atkins being a dual threat of being able to catch and block really well allowed Evan Ingram to be playing the slot a lot more instead of being in line a lot more because Atkins was gone and Crow was injured. Do you see that? So with Atkins gone and Crow injured, that brings Ingram back to inline tight end. Now, if you're going to say, hey, I want Ingram to be inline tight end, then that means, but Marvin Mims is out. So now you're down two people that would play the slot. Evan Ingram would play the slot, but now he's inline tight end because the tight end's injured. And whoever else will play the slot, Marvin Mims, is out. So now you have got Brian and Troy Franklin who can't come off the field. Now you don't have any depth. Maybe that's why you brought in Treylon Burks, but the Commanders signed him. Maybe that's why you're looking for a receiver, Alan Lazard from the Jets, or whatever the case may be, to come and play slot or to be some depth. You also have A.T. Perry and things like that. Maybe that's why you're in talks for a trade because tight end's injured. But I think the misdirection is Atkins opens up Evan Ingram to play the slot and the joker tight end that Sean Payton wants, but he also helps in the run game too. Because if you remember those packages where Nate Atkins would motion in and then stop, and then we'd get it, and then he would go and block, and it'd be a run play. It'd be a counter, it'd be power, it'd be gap. We also need a tight end that can block as well. So I think it's very interesting that there are two teams that have been in talks about trading away their tight ends. That before the Broncos, they snagged the tight end off the wire from the Broncos, the Cleveland Browns, and the Minnesota Vikings. Now, they're adding tight ends to their roster while they're in talks of trading away the tight ends they already have on their roster. I find that very interesting. Hawkinson for the Vikings just isn't as productive as they would like him to be. Now, they do have a quarterback change. He had an injury. They said he hasn't bounced back, but he's still I think he's still relatively young. I think he's still relatively young. I'm checking right now. And then you also have the Cleveland Browns with David Njoku, who's 30. The Cleveland Browns are going through quarterback changes. They're not competitive at all. They have a young tight end and Harold Fannin that they want to give more snaps to. TJ Hawkinson is 28. He's 28 and Njoku is 30. So TJ Hawkinson is a good run blocker, and so is Njoku. They can also catch. And I think that really opens up the two tight end set as well. These tight ends that I think that we could definitely try. But that's also Njoku would be throughout the season. Hawkinson could potentially be for the future. And I think one other one that could definitely be a stopgap would be Taysom Hill, but I don't think he can, at his age, I don't think he can do what Nate Atkins did and motion in and really go in and hit. And I don't think we want him doing that. I think TJ Hawkinson would be a much better guy. He can also be like a second joker tight end, but everyone would turn full on. You'd have a joker tight end. You'd have in TJ Hawkinson, but you'd also have a joker slot receiver tight end in Evan Ingram. And so you can motion them any play and use them however you want because TJ Hawkins can stay in and block and let Evan Ingram go in the slot, or they can both go out. So you can motion. So defense have to count for both of them as well. So I think that's something to look at. So I think the likely trade is for a tight end more than anything. And so I think that's very, very interesting. There's one more topic I want to cover So we covered PS2's injury, what the defense is gonna look like, how Dre Greenlaw can come in and really step up and really take the pressure. The Dre Greenlaw on the front four can take the pressure off of the young guys in the secondary. How to beat the Texans. Earliest pack-in return is the Chiefs. Latest is the Commanders. I think maybe if Patrick Surtain isn't back against the Chiefs, but he's for sure back against the Commanders, I'm okay with that because we have one more game against the Chiefs. So I'm okay with that. But I still want to beat them regardless. Patrick Surtain there or not. We can talk about the trade talks, but I want to talk about RJ Harvey really quickly. And I was just doing something about this today. And for a guy Sean Payton said he did not give his Joker wings to, he is a Joker. And it turns out his second round pick is really, 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 really good. And so if you look back at the two-back system, the success of it and how you use it, and everybody looks to Detroit because they do it so well. But where do you think Dan Campbell got that from? Sean Payton. So you have Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. And so Alvin Kamara can break a run, boom, but he can also catch it out the backfield. And Mark Ingram was your rush guy. You have that in J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. And you can see it. It's really, really fun and cool to see. And as you see with Sean Payton's third year, as he's building this team, you're really starting to see it come together. You're like, oh my goodness. So you see, we went 8-9 with Russell Wilson with second most sacks in the NFL, and none of this. And you're like, wow. And then you start to see Sean Payton really put his fingerprint on it. And you're like, okay, we go to the playoffs. And you're like, okay, wow, we have the two backs. We didn't have the two backs in the tight end last year. Oh, wow, we really have it this year. J.K. Dobbins is third in the NFL in rushing. We went from having no run game last year to third in the NFL. He's the guy, and he's not even getting 25, 30, 40 rushing yards, 20, 30, 40 rushing yards a game, like all the other running backs are. That's why we're also second in explosive rate, because even though he's not getting – so the question is, how do you have the least amount of rushes but the most amount of yards? Well, we're second in explosive rate. He goes, that's where that makes sense. So our run game is explosive with both J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. But you can see J.K. Dobbins in that Mark Ingram role now. And so you really have to account for the run. And so with being third in rushing with J.K. Dobbins, who definitely is going to be a Bronco a long time. He's 26. And Lord willing, this will be his first healthy season. He's not getting 20 rushes a carry. So he's making the most of his carries, so he's staying healthy. But then you go to the other part is, okay, you have the bell cow, the guy who can run the ball and get yards. But do you have that other receiving back who can do it all but also break a run every once in a while? Well, R.J. Harvey said yes. R.J. Harvey had 3 touchdowns yesterday. And he had 3 touchdowns in 3 completely different ways. His first touch of the game was a 40-yard touchdown, and that play was played everywhere. NFL Films, PFF said it was the highest graded play of the NFL season by all teams, untouched. So 40-yard touchdown gone. Okay, so he can rush it. His second touchdown he was direct snap in the red zone. Okay, well, he can do that too. And then his third one was a receiving touchdown. If that's not a Joker running back, I don't know what is. So he's got his Joker wings, and so going into week 9, we see we've got this identity of, hey, we've got a backfield. We've got a good backfield. So the question this week is, even with the Texans being much harder, a much better defense, can these receivers step up again? And we really need, and how's that going to change if Evan Ingram can't be the receiving threat he was because he has to play inline a lot more? Does that change things with Nate Atkins not being healthy? And so I think that trade for TJ Hawkinson, imagine stretching the defense. So not only do you have a Joker running back, but then you have a Joker slot in Evan Ingram, 6'3", 240, who's a Joker slot, Joker tight end. And then you have a Joker tight end in TJ Hawkinson or David Njoku, who can do it both. So if you can have a 12 personnel one running back, 2 tight end, and you have TJ Hawkinson and Evan Ingram, appreciate the thumbs up and the like, guys. You have TJ Hawkinson and Evan Ingram, or David Njoku and or Chig Ngwoku from the Titans and Evan Ingram, or Njoku and Evan Ingram as the 2 tight ends and RJ Harvey. You have 3 jokers on the field. You can motion any one of them. The defense has no idea what's going to happen with either of those. And so that fully allows, and then so you can do that. And so if Nate Atkins isn't fully healthy, you can take his time. He can take his time. And so if he is fully healthy, you bring him back, and let's say then let's say you do some roster gymnastics. Because you keep, if you don't put Pat Surtain on the IR, you keep him on the 53. You're removing Sam Ehlinger to bring Dre Greenlaw back up. And if Nate Atkins go to IR, that doesn't count against the roster, then you bring someone else in. And so we're still at the 53. And so then you've turned to a bunch of jokers and Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, Jade Barron, jokers on defense. And then you've got Evan Ingram, RJ Harvey, and another tight end would bring that's a joker, because Nate Atkins was a mini joker. Remember, he's had I think 4 or 5 passing touchdowns in his NFL career as a tight end. And I didn't mention a great blocker too, playing a little bit of fullback. He's also a mini joker himself. So you need that joker tight end. And maybe Andrew Beck is available. Who does Andrew Beck play for? Does he play for the Jets? I can't remember who he plays for. Maybe he's available. But that's definitely can take our offense to the next level. And with our offensive line, maybe we can bring a guy in. I don't know what your game, would you be able to bring him in and get him up to speed for the Texans game? Because with Nate Atkins not being there is a hinder to the run game and to the pass game. And so, like I said, you're bringing Evan Ingram back in line. You're bringing him back in line. And that's taking away his ability in the pass game. And that already helps even elite defense like the Texans. So I think Sean Payton has a harder job this week than Vance Joseph does, if I'm being honest. So just some things to talk about the Joker conversation. But guys, I appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you guys tune in tonight for the Nothing Rhymes podcast. I will be back Friday, where we will be blitzing the Texans as well, and hope back to the regular streaming Monday. So I'll give you guys a mile high salute. Appreciate the thumbs up. Appreciate the hearts. Appreciate the likes. Make sure you guys tune in tonight to Nothing Rhymes with Orange Blue podcast. I love you guys, and we will see you guys all.
Orange and blue will take a ride. Broncos will never hide. This is the blitz where we confide.